This time around, I'm going to show you how to generate a light map without the seams while still keeping the pieces modular. We're not going to combine them. First thing is, I'm in the same project, so I want to first find the prefab of this original room had a prefab that was not merged together. I want to find that where all of the pieces are separated out. Let me see where that is. Okay, I think this is it. Hide this real quick. And just so we can see what's going on, I'm going to clear the light information by going to my lighting tab and clicking on clear bake data. Okay. And I'm just going to view it in unlit mode just so we can see these pieces. So just to show you what I'm talking about is this is the modular piece where all of the pieces are separated out. What I'm going to do is I want to unpack this prefab so I can take some files out of it. I want my original light. And then I want my light blockers because that's what I use to block some of the lighting when I'm baking. And then now I don't need this old merged prefab. So now I'm using all of the separated modular pieces. I'm going to set them to static so that we can bake light maps using them. My spotlight, and then I'm going to turn on my light blockers. I'm going to do a test light bake using the exact same light map settings we had prior that had all of the seam issues. We'll use this as our base starting position. Once the bake is done, you'll need to go to shaded draw mode and click on it in order for you to see the light map. So now I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to turn off our light blockers group. And another thing I want to do is right now the project is using screen space ambient occlusion. I want to turn that off. So I have to go over here, this PC renderer, uncheck screen space ambient occlusion because I want it to be all baked. All right. So we're back here. These are all modular pieces. So we're back to having the issue we discussed in the last video. And in the last video, I solved this by merging and welding between those points where the seam exists. In this video, we're going to brute force this. We're going to solve this by changing our settings. To more quickly iterate as I render, the rendering takes a while. So I'm going to bump down my light map resolution down to 50 just so I can more quickly iterate on this. First thing what I want to do is unify the Texel density. And to visualize this, click on this bug icon over here on this little arrow and go to Baked Light Map. Here, I want to make sure that the checkered pattern is roughly equal across two main areas, the walls and the baseboard. So let's start with the wall. Select each mesh individually, go to the Inspector tab, and you can adjust the scale in the light map right here by bumping it up or down. In my case, I want to grab, let's see, I'm trying to see where the resolution isn't quite right. Like right here, this wall over here. Let's change this to 1.5. That's a little closer. And the main idea is that you just want it to be relatively close so that the resolution is consistent. In this case, I want to select all the skirting in this room. The easiest way to do that is go to this search box in the hierarchy, just type in skirt. And then I think these four are the baseboards that I want. Actually, this looks like this one right here too. I'm just shift selecting. Okay, how about 2? That's still too big. That's a little bit closer. 2.5. Okay, that's close enough. And then this right here. All right, that looks better. Okay, let's exit, turn off debug. All right, so next time we bake, it'll be a little bit more consistent resolution across the model. So let's go ahead and see with our lower light map resolution, I'm just going to do a quick test bake. I really just want to make sure that it doesn't take forever to render because prior to this, right now this is taking roughly 30 seconds. Prior to this, before I changed the light map resolution, it was taking almost 7 minutes for me just to see the visuals. Okay, it's a little too bright because I forgot to turn on the light blockers. All right, that's already looking a little bit better. Now I'm just going to zoom in right here. I'm just going to focus on adjusting the settings in the lighting tab until I don't see so much of these seams. So the most important setting I want you to keep in mind is turning off filtering. Right now it's set to auto. And in Unity, the way you resolve a lot of the seam issues you see on your modular models when you're light map baking is by turning this off. Now I'm going to do a quick bake and just look at this seam right here. All right, So this is a great starting point. Now what we need to do is, because we're not relying on the filter to kind of blur the noise that's happening because our samples are a bit on the low end, let's go ahead and start adjusting some of these settings one at a time and then pressing render just so we can see what is happening. I'm going to bump my, indirect samples to 4096. The way we're solving for this seam issue is by really generating a lot more data. So that's why the trade-off here is that it just is going to take a lot longer to generate the maps. But the nice thing is you don't have to modify the mesh itself. So for a lot of people, including myself, this way is preferable. Now you'll notice that with the indirect samples cranked up to 4096, it looks much better. I think the next thing to do is, let's look at our Lightmap resolution. I have a feeling if we cranked up the resolution, we can get rid of whatever seam that's still slightly visible. So let's go ahead and bump this up to 4K. I'm gonna go to my Lightmap resolution, and this is gonna be the final render. So 200 instead of 50, and let's go and see what that looks like. Oh, actually, I'm gonna cancel it. I don't need my max bound set to 100. 5 is fine. All right, pressing generate again. This looks much better. One thing I'm going to do is increase my, what I'd like to see is what happens if I increase my direct samples and environmental samples. Let's try 512. That doesn't look like it did much. But from here, the last thing I want to do is, right now we got this slightly blotchy look to the Lightmap because I've turned off filtering. But one little trick that you can do to make this stuff less noticeable is go to your folder where your lightmaps are stored. You can find this by going into the Bake Lightmaps tab. Click on the texture that you see in here, and it'll directly take you to your directory where all of these files are stored. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select all my textures, and I'm going to go into the Inspectors tab, and I'm going to reduce the resolution on these. And one nice effect it'll have is it'll soften some of these blotchiness. Look how it'll smooth it out. For mine, this is fine. You don't want to go too low because then you'll see seams. But now if I come here, zoom out, turn off my light blocker, come here, you'll notice that you don't see the seams anymore. And this is the brute force way of, the main downside of this brute force method is it just takes a lot longer to render. But the big positive is you don't have to go in there and merge and weld every time you mock up a room with your modular pieces. The pieces are still modular. So if you do move them around, you just have to rebake. And I hope you found that useful. Thanks for watching. Take care.